Welcome to the Economist in Your Ear podcast. Today we're unpacking a fascinating shift, really rippling across the global consumer landscape. For a long time, the story was pretty clear, wasn't it? Chinese shoppers looked west for trends, Western brands dominated everywhere.
Yeah, that was the narrative.
But it seems those days are, well, in many ways, coming to an end.
Indeed. We're looking at a fascinating piece that suggests Western brands might genuinely need to worry about this paradigm shift.
Yeah.
But as we explore this, we'll also layer in some additional insights. It paints a more nuanced, perhaps even more intriguing picture of this competitive evolution.
Okay.
You'll discover it's far from a simple one-way street where Chinese brands just sort of take over. The reality is far more complex.
So let's jump right into that central argument then. Chinese brands aren't just competing. They're experiencing, well, an explosive boom, captivating customers both within China and increasingly on the global stage. I mean, think about the Labubu dolls by Pop Mart, these distinct, often grimacing elvish figures sold in those addictive blind boxes.
Oh yeah, the blind boxes. You never know which you'll get.
Exactly, where you don't know which specific doll you're getting until you open it. They've become an absolute phenomenon. We're talking a craze that's caught the eye of global celebrities like David Beckham and Rihanna.
That's right.
And Pop Mart's shares. They soared an incredible 170% this year alone. That kind of meteoric rise isn't just a trend. It feels like a profound statement about changing consumer preferences.
And this surging popularity, it stretches far beyond just collectibles. The article points to premium tea chains like Chaggy, which recently went public in New York.
Wow, in New York.
Yeah. They're selling tea lattes in China at prices pretty much comparable to maybe even slightly above what you'd pay for a Starbucks latte there.
Right.
And they're not stopping there. Chaggy has these really ambitious plans for over 1,300 overseas outlets by, I think, December 2025. This isn't just about local success. It's a bold move, isn't it? To establish a global footprint, challenging that old idea that only Western brands can command premium prices and scale internationally.
And it's not even limited to everyday stuff like coffee or tea. The luxury sector is undeniably getting a distinct local twist. Take Labubu Gold, a Chinese jewelry maker.
Interesting.
They're absolutely nailing it with intricate gold pieces that proudly flaunt a unique Chinese aesthetic. They're moving away from that Western-style diamond focus. Their share price, get this, up over 2,000% in just 1 year.
2,000%. That's staggering.
It is. And in high-end cosmetics, Mao Giping, a brand named after a really renowned Chinese makeup artist, has become the first local company to break into China's top 10 premium makeup brands. For so long, these segments were seen as impenetrable strongholds for Western giants like Estee Lauder and L'Oreal. What does that tell you about the shift in, aspirational value?
Precisely. And we see this dynamic playing out even in the entry-level luxury electric vehicle segment. I mean, for years, foreign automakers like BMW and Mercedes-Benz absolutely dominated this space in China.
Completely.
Yet now, local rivals such as NIO and Li Auto are gaining substantial traction.
Yeah.
And these are complex, high-value purchases, right? Chinese consumers are actively choosing domestic options. That signals a profound shift in trust and preference, even in sophisticated technology categories. It shows local brands are competing not just on price anymore, but on innovation and perceived quality too.
So what's driving this incredible surge? The article puts forward several compelling reasons. One major factor seems to be price sensitivity, especially, in a deflationary environment.
Makes sense.
Brands that can deliver decent quality at a more accessible price point are truly thriving. Think about Luckin or Coty Coffee, which consistently undercut Starbucks in China, but offer a pretty similar product experience.
Yeah, the convenience and the price point.
Or even Pop Mart, despite its artistic appeal, it still targets a broader demographic with collectibles that offer high emotive value without, breaking the bank.
Yeah.
It seems consumers are looking for value, but not necessarily sacrificing quality.
But you're right. It's about much more than just being cheap. Cultural resonance is an enormous factor here. Labubu Gold, Mao Giping, Georgie, they're leading with overtly Chinese aesthetics and narratives.
Right.
This directly counters that long-held assumption that foreign equals aspirational or sophisticated. And their impressive sales figures, they're a clear validation that consumers are connecting deeply with design, stories, cultural messages that resonate with their own heritage and identity. It's a powerful form of cultural pride, really, manifesting in purchasing decisions.
And it's fascinating to see where these brands are growing. The article highlights their strategic focus on smaller inland cities across China. Many of them actually start there before even attempting to conquer the big megalities like Beijing or Shanghai.
That's smart.
H World, a major Chinese hotel chain, plans to open half of its new properties in third and fourth tier cities. And the numbers back this strategy up. Spending on fast-moving consumer goods actually expanded by 5.5% in these smaller cities in 2024.
While it shrank elsewhere.
Exactly, at a time when it shrank by 4.6% in the biggest cities. This really seems like a brilliant strategy to tap into overlooked but clearly burgeoning markets.
That inland-first expansion strategy is indeed proving incredibly lucrative. I mean, consider Mixu, this cold drink chain. It began its journey in one of China's poorer provinces.
Right, not Shanghai.
Not at all. Today, it boasts over 45,000 outlets worldwide. That's a staggering number that actually eclipses McDonald's store count globally.
Wow, more than McDonald's.
Yeah. And in Southeast Asia, you can often grab an iced drink from Mixu for under, like, 50 US cents. This demonstrates an ultra-value proposition that's not only scaling at an astonishing rate, but is also successfully exporting that model across borders. It shows that sometimes the biggest opportunities lie away from those traditional high-profile markets.
Okay, that's a really compelling picture of booming Chinese brands. But as we unpack this further, we have to ask, right, is this truly a universal displacement of Western brands? A structural route, as that initial impression might suggest. What other angles should you, our listener, be considering here?
That's a critical point to examine, absolutely. While the article is spot on about identifying that price-quality sweet spot and the growing cultural resonance, drawing the conclusion of a universal structural route for Western brands might be, well, an overreach.
Okay.
For instance, look at Apple. It still holds a dominant position, over 60% of China's premium phone segment. That's huge.
Still very strong.
Very. And LVMH's Sephora, the beauty retailer, reported record store openings in China just in 2024. This strongly suggests that the competitive landscape isn't really a one-size-fits-all phenomenon. It's very sector-specific, not some blanket displacement across all categories. It's far more nuanced than a simple West versus China narrative.
So what you're saying is it's not a uniform way of washing over every single Western company. Some are clearly still thriving, adapting maybe.
Exactly. Some are definitely holding their ground or even growing. And another crucial point for us to consider is whether a boom necessarily equals sustainable value creation. You mentioned those massive share price spikes for Pop Mart and Labubu Gold.
Yeah, the 170% and the 2,000%.
Right. It's true. Pop Mart shares soared 170% this year, but they are still 35% below their 2021 peak. This isn't unusual. Collectibles often experience these typical boom and bust cycles.
Right, fads can fade.
Precisely. And Labubu Gold's staggering 2,300% surge, it actually prompted warnings of it being a cult stock, meaning its valuation might be detached from its fundamental business realities. A spike like that, while exciting for some, can actually be a red flag for long-term investors. It's not necessarily a sign of a durable competitive advantage or a truly stable market position. It highlights that market exuberance isn't the same as enduring customer loyalty.
That distinction between market excitement and long-term value creation really makes sense. Now, let's talk about overseas expansion. The article implies that pushing abroad is a form of de-risking for these Chinese brands. They're definitely expanding globally, we see that, but how smooth is that path really?
This brings up another vital question. While many Chinese brands are aggressively pushing abroad, it's far from friction-free. We're already witnessing significant regulatory headwinds, aren't we?
Yeah, like the EV tariffs.
Exactly. The EU has imposed tariffs on Chinese EVs. We see increasing U.S. scrutiny on giants like Temu and Shein. Not to mention local content rules emerging in ASEAN countries. Even NIO's own CEO admitted that these duties will inevitably squeeze margins on their upcoming Firefly City car launch in Europe.
So the narrative of easy overseas success is complicated by real regulatory, political, and economic pressures. It's certainly not a guaranteed win, and these brands have considerable hurdles to overcome outside their home market.
And the article also suggests that frugality is fading in China, with customers supposedly paying just as much or more for local equivalents. How does it really hold up when you look at the broader data? Are Chinese consumers truly embracing higher price points from local brands just out of preference, or is there more to this story?
Well, if you look at the broader picture, data from firms like Bain actually shows average selling prices falling nationwide across many categories.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Even Chaji's CNY 18 latte, while positioned as premium, still undercuts a Starbucks cappuccino by about 25%. So, yes, premium local brands are succeeding, but often it's because the foreign benchmark started at a kind of luxury plus price point.
Right. They set a very high bar.
Exactly. It's not necessarily that Chinese consumers are suddenly ignoring value altogether. Rather, local brands are finding that sweet spot, good enough quality, at a more palatable, value-driven price point, even if that price feels premium compared to the absolute lowest cost options in the market. It's about striking that balance.
And that strategic focus on smaller inland cities for local brands, is that really a unique advantage that Western brands have completely overlooked? Or are foreign brands also adapting to this, crucial and growing market segment?
You're touching on a key point there. It's not entirely unique to Chinese brands anymore. We've seen major Western players like Nike and Yum. Brands think KFC, Pizza Hut begin their own county town rollouts back in 2023.
Okay, so they are catching on.
They are. And Coca-Cola's recent mini bottle push explicitly targets these same lower-tier cities. So while multinationals might have been perhaps slower to react initially, they are definitely learning and playing catch-up now. The gap isn't unbridgeable, and foreign firms are starting to invest significantly in these crucial, often overlooked inland markets. This isn't necessarily a permanent competitive moat for Chinese brands.
So it really sounds like there are some significant underlying assumptions in that initial narrative that we should definitely be checking and maybe challenging. For you, what stands out as most important for our listeners to consider when thinking about these dynamics?
Well, a critical assumption to question is that domestic success automatically translates abroad. Think about it. Labor-intensive franchise models like Mixus, which thrive on sheer volume and low costs, might travel relatively well logistically. But IP-heavy categories, things like toys like Pop Mart or complex cosmetics like Maogaping, can face significant litigation challenges, IP battles, and frankly, massive brand trust barriers overseas. What works within China's unique market and, let's be honest, highly protected regulatory environment doesn't always effortlessly cross borders.
That's a really good point. And what about the idea that Chinese consumers are permanently repatriated in their brand preferences? Is that a lasting shift, or could this consumer sentiment potentially change again, perhaps even swinging back towards foreign brands?
That raises a really important question about consumer psychology, doesn't it? When incomes fully recover and perhaps geopolitical tensions ease somewhat, that imported cachet that foreign brands once enjoyed could very well rebound. We've seen this pattern before, post-SARS, post-COVID. A desire for international goods often returns with economic stability.
Right, trends are cyclical.
Exactly. Consumer sentiment, as we know, can be cyclical, not linear. And finally, you always have to question if valuation equals validation. Those share price spikes in China often precede sharp mean reversions. Just because investors are pouring money into a brand today doesn't automatically mean that brand has built an unshakable, enduring connection with its consumers, or that its business model is truly sustainable in the long run. Investor exuberance is simply not the same as fundamental strength.
That offers a much more balanced and nuanced lens, doesn't it? Instead of a simple West versus China story, it seems like these Chinese brands are actually operating with distinct strategic playbooks. Each one has its own unique strengths, sure, but also very clear vulnerabilities.
Absolutely. You can really discern three different strategic approaches emerging from these Chinese champions. First, we have the ultra-value scale players like Mixu and Luckin.
Right, the super cheap, super fast ones.
Exactly. Their core competitive edge is astonishingly low capital expenditure, coupled with an aggressive strategy of city-tier saturation, meaning they expand incredibly rapidly and affordably into, like, every nook and cranny. But their primary risk is those razor-thin margins. It leaves them highly vulnerable to even small fluctuations in ingredient inflation or, the rapid emergence of copycats.
So they thrive on sheer volume and speed, but it's a constant tightrope walk financially.
Precisely. Then second, you have the cultural premium niche brands, which include companies like Labubu Gold and Maogaping. They win by leveraging powerful storytelling, deeply rooted in Chinese heritage, and by harnessing local intellectual property maybe related to traditional ingredients or unique aesthetics.
Okay, the storytellers.
Right. Their risks, however, involve navigating fickle fashion cycles. What's culturally relevant today might not be tomorrow, and the potential for those valuation bubbles we discussed, making their long-term stability less certain. Their success is deeply tied to cultural trends, which, as we know, can be unpredictable.
And then the third playbook, what does that look like?
And third, there are the tech-adjacent new luxury brands, exemplified by EV makers like NIO and Li Auto. Their formidable strength lies in deep hardware-software integration, offering a seamless, intuitive user experience through smart operating systems and advanced vehicle tech.
The tech leaders.
Yeah, but they face significant unique challenges. The looming threat of export tariffs, the potential rollback of crucial government subsidies, and a consistently high capital burn rate, meaning they require massive, ongoing investment to maintain their competitive edge and innovation pipeline. It's a very, very expensive game to play.
So for Western rivals, it's clearly not just about trying to lower their prices to compete directly on cost, is it? That seems like a losing game against some of these players, especially the ultra-value ones. What then is the critical takeaway for foreign brands that want to thrive in this evolving landscape?
You've hit on the crux of it there. Simply cutting prices isn't the answer, probably not sustainable either. Western brands need to genuinely localize their design and product development, not just superficially, but profoundly. They must also significantly speed up their supply chains to be more agile, more responsive to local tastes and fast-moving trends.
Speed matters.
Hugely. And perhaps most importantly, they need to build authentic online-offline community engagement, connecting with consumers on a deeper, more emotional level. Meanwhile, the challenge for these surging Chinese champions is proving they can truly survive and thrive outside the protective halo of their hyperscale home demand and the often state-supported logistics and infrastructure that have fueled their initial growth. Their true test is global resilience, adapting to diverse market conditions without those previous advantages. So the bottom line then is that Chinese brands are surging, and it's a powerful global phenomenon, no doubt about it. But it's an uneven and highly dynamic boom. Their market share gains seem to be driven as much by compelling value propositions, whether that's ultra-low prices or culturally relevant premium products, as they are by pure patriotism.
Right. Value still matters.
It does. And let's not forget that speculative valuations and a rapidly shifting policy landscape, both domestically and internationally, mean today's darlings can stumble and fall just as quickly as they rose. It's a dynamic, evolving landscape with many, many moving parts.
So foreign incumbents certainly aren't doomed, but they absolutely must stop treating localization as some simple box-ticking exercise or a superficial translation of existing strategies. It demands genuine, deep understanding and agile adaptation to local tastes and dynamics. Ultimately, it's far less a one-way displacement of Western labels than it is a multi-front contest. The brands that will truly keep the customer tomorrow, both in China and globally, will be those that master design speed, achieve broad distribution across all city tiers, and cultivate authentic digital fandom and community engagement.
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? As global consumers ourselves, facing this ever-expanding array of choices, what do we truly value when it comes to a brand? Is it primarily its origin, its price point, the story it tells? Or is there something else entirely that drives our purchasing decisions in this incredibly interconnected world?
Definitely something to ponder as you navigate your next purchase and perhaps as you observe the brands emerging around you wherever you are.